Hi guys, Brain here, and welcome to another commentary video. In today's commentary video, I am coming to you with some unfortunate news that you've probably noticed out there. Out in the DBD world right now, as you are playing your games both on Survivor and Killer, and you've probably noticed it a little more on Killer than you have on Survivor. And it's a bit of a doozy, and on the surface, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but it's actually affected gameplay in a pretty severe way, especially if you're playing certain killers. So, let's go ahead and talk about it. So, the big change that Behavior has made without really making any huge announcements, or it just absolutely came out of nowhere, is that we have just decided to add a bunch of extra junk everywhere on all of the maps. So, by terms of junk, what am I talking about? So you know how you'll be running by on McMillan and you'll see like trees, boxes, crates, the big spindles, the big spindle wheels, things that usually aren't part of a tile but can be, that just kind of like sit on their own. They're not there to kind of like enhance the gameplay or anything. They're just kind of like, set dressing do. And there's great examples of this on plenty of maps. Chapel, the Asylum realm also has like boxes and like those little like everything's burned down. That's like Dolores. Everything got burned down in the asylum. So there's just like piles of like burned ash and like rotted wood. So you'll have like those ambiently around. Great example on Ormond. Ormond, you have like the snow piles and like the rocks. So essentially those are just like usually just kind of used for just like set dressing. They're just supposed to make the maps look better. And they decided to, just for some reason with this patch where the night came out, just, I don't know, just add a bunch more of all of the decorations to every single map. But the problem is it's actually starting to affect gameplay. They are no longer decorations. They are actually starting to affect the gameplay now. The problem is, and it boils down to two main problems. The first is that it's actually starting to affect gameplay and they're no longer being obstacles. The second being just like outright fat shaming. So the first is that like usually when there's like the decorations, they're ambiently about, right? Like they're standing about in between tiles, right? Like you've never seen, like let's go back to the example of McMillan. There's trees everywhere because they're trying to make you feel like you're in the McMillan estate, which is in a forest. So they want trees everywhere to make you feel like you're in a forest, right? And which makes sense. But previously, like for example, you never see like one of those pine trees in the middle of a tile. Like you're not running through a long wall jungle gym and there may be a fire barrel in the middle, right? But you'll never see like a whole tree just in the middle of the loop, because that would affect your ability to play the game. So that would be dumb to put that there. So it doesn't make any sense. Now, they've added a bunch more trees, they've added a bunch more boxes, and now these trees and boxes are ending up on the walls of tiles, they're ending up in tiles, and it's making it hard to play the game. It's making it really, really difficult. Obviously, if you're a Survivor, you're going to end up like running and bumping into things. Hugging things as tightly as you can on Survivor is like key to surviving, no pun intended. If you take turns wide around walls and objects, you're gonna be in a world of pain, because you have to put as much distance between you and the killer as physically possible. So you can't be like trying to dodge obstacles while in a loop. That's gonna get you caught up. Also, more important, and this is more important to me because I play precision killers like Huntress and Hillbilly, is that if you put objects in or on the sides of loops, you literally can't use your powers as well. I can tell you that at least half of my uses of my powers, both Huntress and Hillbilly, come from just barely threading the needle around a corner, whether that be with a chainsaw or a hatchet. Just barely coming around the corner, throwing a hatchet down the wall and hitting somebody at the other corner of said loop. Or with Hillbilly, mostly Hillbilly, trying to get that curve, revving your chainsaw, 99ing your chainsaw, and the moment that they step out of position, sliding down the wall and hitting them at the very, very edge with your speedy chainsaw. Now, there's just rocks and just crap in the way. There's just stuff everywhere. There's so many loops on this game that you quite literally just can't do that on anymore. Because just based on, just at the mercy of RNG, there just might be a rock in the way of your hatchet or a rock in the way of your chainsaw. And it's just miserable. I saw one post on Twitter that was absolutely abhorrent. Absolutely abhorrent. It's the Garden of Joy shack. Because the shack is a static spawn on Garden of Joy, meaning it will always be in that back right corner. It never moves. The bushes, there was a bush and a box. And they were just on both sides of the shack window. Essentially making shack window completely safe. Completely safe. Because if you vault, even if the killer was tailing you, or you vaulted unsafely and the killer read it and was tailing you, he has to go around the bush or around the box on the other side to chase you, which gives you free reign to just vault right back in. What were they thinking? Like, did they not test this? Was this like a last second decision that somebody's like, oh yeah, you know what'd be cool if the game just had a little bit more decorations and didn't like actually really think about what they were doing? Because this feels like they didn't test it, because this would be something that you would spot like right away. It's like, oh god, this is like really intensely affecting gameplay. And like I said, it's not even that. It comes down to also fat shames. There are very intense fat shames for both sides, but obviously there, as with fat shames in general, just as a concept, there are some things that there are some places where the survivors can fit and the killer can't. I saw an example. We were talking about Asylum earlier. I saw an example where one of those, just a pile of boxes spawned like right next to Shack, but it wasn't against Shack wall. It was just kind of like a foot out from Shack. The survivor was hugging Shack wall like they're supposed to. Like I said, hugging things is important in Survivor. And they could slip right through that, but the killer could not. So they literally lost chase at Shack, which is already one of the strongest structures in the game, because the box spawned next to it. What were they thinking? What is going on? Like, this patch, it's not as bad as the Twins patch. Before somebody tells me in the comments, at least it's not bad as the Twins patch. But this is one of the buggiest, most awkward patches they've put through in a very, very long time for the game. And it's something. But I feel like this, like, at first I enjoyed seeing like more trees on McMillan. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. It's really starting to look like a forest. That's cool. But like, the more I played, the more I realized that these decorations are now just getting in the way. and they're actually hindering the gameplay of the game. So I hope they revert that, or at least realize that, hey, if we're gonna add more obstacles and more decorations, we should probably put them like in dead zones and not actually the places where the gameplay happens. So yeah, what do you guys think? Have you guys noticed that there's a lot more junk on maps? Let me know how you feel about it down in the comments below. But that's gonna be it for today's video, friends. Thank you so much for watching. But I do upload daily, so I will see you tomorrow. But if I do not, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.